Well, good, good. Are we ready?
And now you don't have to leave earlier.
No worries. We probably all will. Brian, are we ready yet, or you tell me when? All right. Thank you, everyone, for being here with us today. I apologize for starting late. I'm hoping that everyone can hear me. If you can hear me, can you just kind of wave your hands if you can hear me? Can you tell Brian if they're saying they can or not? Okay. All right. I see the thumbs up. Thank you so much for that confirmation. I'm Harold Johnson. I am the chair of the Mayor's Task Force for Economic Business and Economic Development. We canceled our meeting on last month rather. And I thought it just would be good to continue to get just to keep the muscle memory in place for us to continue to meet on the first Tuesday of every month. I cannot see all of the names, but let's just kind of go around with Edgar starting, and we can kind of go around the table. It's only 5 of us in the room, the fifth floor conference room. But Edgar, if you kind of just introduce yourself, and then we'll go to Sharon and Patrick and so forth.
Yes, sir. Edgar Galicia, Central Avenue Betterment Association, Executive Director.
Great, thank you. Sharon?
Patrick Waters, Acting Chief Counsel.
And we also have Brian Perez, who is our liaison to the mayor's office as well. So we appreciate everyone for being here. And I can't see who we have there, Brian, but if you can just call their names and they can introduce themselves, that would be great. Jaquise Barber.
Yes, Jacques Barber, interested citizen.
Okay, hello, Mr. Barber. Good to see you again.
Yes, glad to be here.
Pam Smart.
Good afternoon, Pam Smart, Mount Carmel Redevelopment Corporation.
Great, good to see you, Mr. Smart.
Patrice Townsend.
Yes, Patrice Townsend, Kansas City Board of Public Utilities.
Hi, Ms. Townsend.
Hi.
Go ahead, I'm sorry. Now we have Leslie Scott.
I'm Leslie Scott. I'm the program manager for digital inclusion at KC Digital Drive.
Great, good to see you. Okay, so we don't have a big group today. It's been a lot going on this week, this month, these past couple of months. As many of you know, our interim administrator is no longer with us. Her contract ran out, and I'm happy to say that we do have a new administrator here for Wyandotte County, Mr. David Johnston. Actually had invited him to be a part of our meeting today. He was not, because if you've never been part of the dynamic at City Hall, once you come into City Hall, it just sucks you into a big sucking noise. It just brings you in, and everybody's coming at you, and emails are going berserk, and it's just it's wild. So it takes a little bit of time to kind of get used to how the dynamics work here at City Hall. But he did tell me that he will be at our next meeting on May the 5th, I think it is. We also lost our chief legal counsel, Misty Brown, and that means that Mr. Waters had stepped into that position as the acting chief counsel. And again, he probably is in over his head with all the things that she was dealing with, plus the stuff that he was already dealing with. So it's not, we're gonna need a little bit of time to kind of readjust our schedule and our dynamic, and make sure that we're getting everybody acclimated as to where we are here. It makes it challenging for us as commissioners to schedule and reschedule and bring groups together when all of the players are not in play, and or looking over and overseeing multiple departments and multiple responsibilities. So because we canceled the meeting on last month, I wanted to at least bring us together this month to talk about where we're going. One of the things that we have been working on, continuing to be working on, is the exchange of the idea of the community benefits agreement. And that's something that the prior administrator and Mr. Waters and myself and Commissioner Davis And there probably were some others that were part of that also. Oh, Allie Porter, she's not with us either. She helped to coordinate a lot of this with Brian. We got together and kind of put together an outline of how we want to move forward with that. I've asked Mr. Waters if he could just give us a few moments of his thoughts on it and that conversation, with the understanding that he has not had a whole lot of time to really address this as deeply as he would like to. But I'd like for us to at least get an update on that portion, Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Commissioner Johnson. So we talked a little last time, there's two main types of community benefit agreements. One is called a structured fee program, where it's basically you have fixed fees that are paid by an applicant, and it's for a specific purpose that's usually set out in the ordinance. It could be for affordable housing, for parks, for safety. We talked about the pros of this are that, the developers know what to expect in terms of what the costs are. Everyone's treated equally. There's less oversight and staff time needed to manage it. Then I guess the cons would be though that, the one size fits all model might not provide a specific need that a neighborhood would want. And there's not quite as much community involvement in terms of how that's structured. The other type is called the public benefit program. These are negotiated on a case-by-case basis with each new development. The pros on that is that you can tailor the benefit to the needs of a specific neighborhood, and it allows for more creativity in terms of the options. The cons are that it creates uncertainty for developers when each benefit has to be negotiated separately. It can also create conflict between neighborhood organizations. I've read quite a bit about that in terms of some communities that use these, where you kind of get these turf battles where, if a development is right along the line of a district or right along the lines of where people consider to be a certain neighborhood, you get these turf battles, and that's not really helpful. And it just takes a lot more staff time to administer because each project is different and you have to follow each requirement. So, we talked a little bit about with Ms. Harrison Lee before she left. I think she was really leaning towards the structured fee program. We talked about kind of where our staffing is right now, and we just don't have a lot of staffing to do oversight. An example that's kind of similar, if you think about Kansas City, Missouri, and how they have their affordable housing set aside, where any large new apartment project has to have at least 20% of the units set aside as affordable. And if a developer decides not to meet that requirement, they have to pay into their affordable housing trust fund. And that's a set amount that the developer knows, okay, if I don't meet the 20% threshold and I'm 10 units short, I know I'm going to have to pay this much into the fund. And that's a decision they can make. If they think it's better for their pro forma to do that way, and they're willing to put aside the money, they know what to expect. So that's kind of an example. One recent example that we've done of maybe unintentionally of a community benefit agreement would be with 505 Central. We had them set aside $350,000 for improvements to the street on Central there. That's approximately 1% of the overall development. It's about a $35 million development, so 350,000. So, we could think of things like that where, we kind of have just a fixed set aside based on the proportion of the overall development costs. We could do a fixed percentage of the overall incentives. If they're asking for $5 million in incentives, then you provide X amount of money. So those are ways where we could do kind of a fixed benefit agreement. Then we just have to decide, what is that money used for? Does it go into a pot, and then we have another a committee that decides? Do we say that it all goes to affordable housing? So those are questions that we'd have to decide about how we wanted to use those funds.
That's perfect. Thank you, Mr. Waters. That does really encapsulate where we were. I see our Director of Planning, Gunnar Hand, is here. I would invite you to the table if you don't mind. You might have some things to share as well. One of the things that we talked about, Edgar, was that we probably needed to have the NBRs involved, not knowing exactly where they would be involved, but certainly you all would have a better idea of the community, even, I'm not going to say even more than the district commissioner, but in some cases, yes. And so I thought that one of the things that we have been talking about is making sure that we have your voice, the NBR's voice at the table as well, to help guide us with regard to that. So are there any questions? And there might be some persons that don't even know what we're talking about. We just kind of jumped right in. Are there any persons that are online or that are here in the room that have any comments or questions with regard to this? If so, I can't see your hand. You don't have to raise your hand on your, just go ahead and turn your mic on and identify yourself and go right ahead.
If I may,
Yes, please.
I think this is the right way to start this conversation, because community benefits agreements are just a pillar of the understanding of community. So whatever the government, the legislature, the regulations state or are written for, become a blueprint for anything future and the perspective that all of the leaders of the community have on the future of the community. Okay, so if we don't have a community benefits agreement, it's literally that we don't care about community. But if we have them and the details are specific to one direction or another, that shows our intentions or intentionality. So it is very good point to talk about how to have one, because I doubt there is anyone sitting in this meeting that does not care about community one way or another. The single request that I have for what we're doing with starting with the community benefits agreements and moving to whatever strategy of growth that we determined is feasible for or needed for our community, is that it doesn't matter how we do it or what we do, we need to generate upper mobility for our people, okay? If we take a look at the biggest challenge we are facing and we have faced for about 20 years, which is the keeping of our budget in the black, okay? That's the single biggest challenge we have, because when our community asks for why our parks are the way they are, why our community centers are the way they are, why do we not have the beautiful sand beach in the shower house, I don't know, the bathhouse, whatever that was called. Why don't we have that now? And we had it back in the years and all that. It's because we don't have money to fund any of these. We don't have money to recreate, rebuild, revamp, and or fix what we have, right? And so without money, we can have all the master plans in the world, but we cannot make them reality. Without money, we cannot bring wealth to our people. So we need money, and the easiest way to get the funding necessary is by increasing the numbers of residents that we have. And that is where the conundrum comes in, because we can do it one of two ways pretty much. What we can do it is flatten everything there is, save the historic structures, build brand new, and bring people who have the means to pay for the brand new, and then we'll be fine. You know, the government, the county will continue existing, but our people would have been displaced and died. The other way is to help our people generate upper mobility on their own means and by the structure and by the programming, and allow them to merge into the new city. to merge into or be a part of the new structure. So bring all the 505s that you want, but make sure every single one of these new projects generate upper mobility, allow our people to be part of them, and mix and learn, okay? And I have experience, I have visited projects like this where the people are taken into consideration and upper mobility is generated so that we get the largest number of good and happy, prosperous members of our community. And we're very welcoming to the new members of our community and offer them services and the housing stock that everybody wants. Luxury. I'm not against luxury, but I'm against luxury when it is taken away from our people. If it is sharing with our people and it is allowing time for our people to learn of this availability of these new ways and merge with the new members of community, the incoming residents, then upper mobility takes on and our people learn that there is better ways and move on with their lives to a greater standard, greater quality of life. So the basic in whatever we write into these contracts for community benefit agreements is that they generate upper mobility. And secondly, I studied these cases and I have learned of what I call a 4-4-box strategy, where we have 4 levels of programming and legislature so that we can help our residents move upward. First, we need to understand the needs for our property owners and protect our property owners at all costs. Because our property owners, be it residential, commercial, or social, are the ones who have put the thickest skin in the game, investing in our community directly, self-investing in many times. And so they cannot be just taken out. They need to be taken into consideration and be part of the projects that come, be part of the wealth, be part of the investment, and move up with the investment. The second bracket, the second box, is the business owners. Business owners who are making a living here and are generating jobs here and are benefiting themselves by self-investing, managing their businesses, and creating jobs for our community. We need to protect them secondly. And everything we do in these benefit agreements and any regulation that is being worked on to harvest or to push and benefit our future needs to take our business owners into account and protect them as well. Protect them as well. And the third box is filled with the stable residents. All of those who have a job here, they do not own land, they do not own businesses, but they work here, they operate here. All of those who have been able to maintain the rent paid for at least a year or 2 years, which can be demonstrated by their contracts, by the landlord letters, that they are stable residents. We need to include them into these benefits, into this legislature, so that they are protected somehow. And this is where this 20% of low-income housing comes in. But low-income housing does not operate or functions by itself. It's not just let's give them a house and do whatever they want. No, let's think about these stable residents that can rent and have been able to pay rent for a period of time, and they can learn new trades, they can learn new jobs, they can educate themselves and bring services to these new housing structures where the single mother of two can get a low-income apartment in a nice building structure, but can also get a license with education, obviously, a license for babysitting. And now she's able to offer these babysitting services to the rest of the residents. And
You say that the third item was to protect people that work in Kansas City,
I call them stable residents.
stable residents.
And to me, stable residents are those who have stable jobs in our community and operate in our community, and those renters who are stable, who have either jobs wherever in the metro, but they reside here and are stable living here for or paying rent for more than a year, because they're the core of our population. And they're the ones who can give us the services we need when it comes down to the new residents that are able to pay the new prices. Okay, and the last box is the hardest box to work with because it is filled with unstable residents, people who are couch, hopping, people who are homeless, people who are ill, addicts, all of these. And it's harder to help these people because they need not only a meal daily, they need structure, they need education, they need treatment, they need therapy, they need so many more things that if we cannot protect the property owners, if we cannot protect the business owners, if we cannot protect the stable residents, we will not be able to protect the homeless. And they will just grow in numbers. But the catch 11 thing is that if we work with the property owners, if we work with the business owners, and we work with the stable residents and are successful in generating upper mobility for all of these people, all of these groups, we will have the revenue not only to start growing again on our own means by the sheer number of new residents coming into the area, but we will also have enough funding to help our unstable residents. That is a strategy that I ask everybody in this table to think about, to put your heart into it and know that there are ways to help ourselves, not be displaced, not be taken out, and grow financially, live stable lives, and increase the quality of our living. And that starts with a significantly strong community benefit agreement structure.
Taking notes here on my little pad here. So we call the four
I call the four box strategy.
box strategy. Anyone else have any comments or feedback? Gives us a lot of feedback here.
I think Mr. Barber has a hand raised.
Yeah, if I could, I guess, extend a little further on what the prior speaker was just saying. I've seen the county have a number of master plans. There have been consultants to come in to talk about community development and those kinds of things. And I'm sure all of us constantly hear about the complaints about property taxes and so forth. And as the previous speaker also mentioned, the fact that the county faces shortfalls in the budget to address all of the things that citizens would like to see. The one thing that will help with increasing the budget is increasing the tax base. Currently, the residents that do pay the property taxes feel an unfair burden. Whether it's fair or unfair is a different issue, but the bottom line is that the county needs more revenue. And coming back to the whole idea of a master plan, at least to me, I have not seen a master plan that is truly comprehensive in looking at community development that has a focus on increasing the prosperity of the county. It's a multifaceted view, and we have a number of patchwork programs, but none of them have been incorporated into a comprehensive plan. It's nothing that could be done overnight. It could take 10 to 20 years to reach fruition, but it does require a commitment, and it requires a vision that incorporates all aspects of community development, which means not just housing, but commercial development, employment, upward mobility opportunities, those kinds of things that would attract more people to moving into our community, as well as providing job and employment and career opportunities here within the county, so that we do increase our tax base and increase the desirability of people to move into Wyandotte County. This is one of the obstacles that a number of entities and organizations that I've been a part of have continually complained about. When they're looking for to fill vacant positions, employment positions, they come from outside the county to get interested people in those jobs, because they do pay a decent salary, but those persons are unwilling to relocate into Wyandotte County for various reasons that I think we're all aware of. But Wyandotte County has some very, very nice neighborhoods, and we do have some blighted areas within the county. And to keep from just going on and on here, I come back to looking at a truly comprehensive long-term plan that looks towards a true community development vision.
Well, Mr. Barber, I certainly say amen to what you're talking about. And as you were talking, Mr. Gunnar Hand, who is our director of urban planning, happened to step in, and he is actually working on the same thing that you just talked about. So I'll just ask him to kind of give you a response to your thoughts and from there. Mr. Hand, if you don't mind.
Great.
Sure. Thank you, Commissioner. Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Urban Design. I guess I'd say a couple things. As I've mentioned in this meeting forum in the past, we're currently in the process of creating for the first time in the unified government a truly comprehensive plan. We currently have what is called the citywide master plan, which is not comprehensive, has some visionary countywide, let's say, citywide elements included in it, but basically functions as an area plan for those areas that do not currently have area plans. I'd say that's its primary function. With a little bit of serendipity and certainly some alignment across staff at the UG, last year we mapped out and planned multiple deliverables, multiple consultants to do many, many things, from a comprehensive plan, citywide economic development strategy, first time ever, citywide historic preservation plan, first time ever, housing strategy, first time ever, All of these things are speaking towards the same vision. Last October was the 25th anniversary of the unification of Wyandotte County and Kansas City, Kansas. What does our next 25 years look like? What should we be working towards? These long-range plans, comprehensive plans, area plans are all visionary documents that are supposed to codify the community's shared vision of the future. And so it is imperative that we use forums like this and other outreach to drive what those policy documents become. Now, at the end of the day, these documents are adopted by state statute in Kansas as with ordinances, which means they are the official policy. So in that sense, they cannot and are not the end all be all. They are only a tool by which we can hold our decision makers. Sorry, I didn't mean to point at you, Commissioner. To hold our decision makers accountable for their actions, because we are not infallible. We are human beings. And sometimes when something's dangled in front of us, we forget about the policy we've previously adopted behind us, right? So it's incumbent upon the public, NBRs like Mr. Galicia and the organization he runs, but as well as staff to hold ourselves accountable. Now, if I'll quickly digress, I agree with everything you said, Edgar. I want to use one of the examples that Patrick used in his presentation as my input on that conversation as it relates to betterment agreements. The 505 project development agreement, if you remember, happened after we ran through the entitlement process. Now, not every development agreement has an entitlement process with it, but the vast majority of them do. The vast majority. And while the development agreement has to go through all the traps of a public engagement process, it doesn't have to do as an extensive amount of community engagement as an entitlement process on a property does. For those reasons, I would advocate or recommend that we run entitlements before we run development agreements, because in that situation, although not everybody was happy with the final development agreement, which is fine, that $350,000 was specifically informed by issues raised at the entitlement process. And so I think that is something to consider moving forward. And to Mr. Barber's comments and anybody's comments in general, what I had recommended for this and every other task force that the mayor's created over the last year and a half is whatever comes of these, whatever recommendations or what have you, projects, policies, strategies, you name it, that comes out of these should be incorporated into all of the long-range planning we're doing right now and through the end of this calendar year. So one, that we can codify it, and two, so that it can inform these larger policy discussions that happen at the, 10,000 foot level when you're talking about comprehensive plans. We're not going to talk about specific projects necessarily in a comp plan process. We're going to create a North Star that area plans can then dig a little deeper in, and specific for those areas and in those neighborhoods, develop real projects and strategies to move those forward. So I'll just put that back out there, that if it's we just had a meeting last week where a commissioner specifically noted betterment agreements needs to be a part of the comp plan process. And here you are talking about betterment agreements, and what a great vehicle by which we can get a conversation started, vetted, and then raised to a policy discussion level through the comp plan process. So that's my recommendation.
If I may say, I believe that the biggest risk we're running today is to repeat what happened to the county and the community with 505 Central. We are so starved for success as a community. We are so starved for recognition and growth and looking better, that when someone comes in, shines money at us, we become their prey. We become attuned to them and we cater to them. The reason we don't have a community benefit agreement with 505 is because we never thought of that before it came to us. The reason we don't have control over 505 is because we never sat down and thought through what development should look like for us before they came and shined their money. I think we are at the moment, of the specific moment where we need to, and I know you're working on all of these, we need to define what is that we need, what development we need, and how it should look like, and put out there a request for projects that fit the picture we're trying to paint. And whoever comes and says, hey, I have these many millions and I want to do it X or Y, if they don't have this understanding of the community agreement, if they don't have the understanding of respecting our community and helping us with the upper mobility so that we can be successful together, then they shouldn't be the ones developing our community. And that, I know you're working on it, Gunnar, and we need to make sure this becomes part of the process, not the baseball batter that is going to rescue the game.
Commissioner, I wonder if what we're doing, what the UG is currently doing with the RFQ, RFP for the 3 UG-owned parcels is another conversation this task force should have as it moves through the RFQ process and into the RFP process. The intent was always to kind of pre-qualify lead developers and subcontractors for the 3 sites. But then as it moves to RFP, the RFP stage, I think our current thinking is we're going to let them out one at a time, still to be determined. But after RFQ is when we initiate the engagement, continue in some cases, the engagement at each site. And I'm wondering if one of the places we should stop is here or report back to here so that we can both fine tune that RFP as we are in it right now, but also use it like we are currently using the whole RFQ, RFP process as I always say implementation starts on day one. So we've already started the comp plan process. We should be implementing the comp plan process. And so this opportunity, I think, is a way for us to do exactly what you just said, Mr. Galicia. And so let's run through the traps. Let's really use that as a pilot that we can then potentially improve and move into either as an idea that we can, again, codify in the comp plan, or what the second one looks like if these are successful, right?
I would ask for these 3 projects that are on the table, the creators of, the guards of, the ruling or the authorities over these 3 projects. I would ask, how are these projects generating or helping upper mobility for our people? How are these projects respecting and helping the property owners in our community? How are these projects helping the business owners in our community? And how are they supporting the stable residents in our community? And I will leave it at that, because the next step is everything has to happen before we can help the unstable residents. But if we can solve, or if we can provoke upper mobility with the structuring of these 3 projects, respecting the property owners, respecting the business owners, and helping the stable residents, we would be in our way to resurrect for everybody.
I move on to that, because I think I want to hear from Patrick on that idea that's been thought of. But Brian, do we have somebody else with their hands up?
Yeah, Leslie Scott.
Scott, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention the importance of ensuring that we have broadband internet for everyone, both at home and in their businesses. I think that, it's just an important element of any community development plan. And so I hope that we all, might consider including that in whatever is produced.
Okay, thank you. I
That's all.
appreciate that.
Mhm.
Taking notes here. Patrick, do you have a thought relative? My thought as to what Gunner's talking about in Edgar, is there some legal guidance that we need to be mindful of as we're trying to talk about the things that, in terms of having these projects as far as the RFQ, RFP process funnel through this task force?
So
How could that, or how would that work?
yeah, so the applications are confidential until a winner is selected. So we would just have to be careful about that. So if we, like, I don't know how many potential people we might select. We could select more than one, I guess, per site. So after selections are made, if we wanted to then bring those, the winning bids for discussion, at least, we could do that. We would just have to wait until that process plays out.
We would have to wait until the actual developer is determined based on their
Yeah.
response to the RFQ.
Right.
Go ahead.
Just as a quick clarification, because Patrick didn't review this RFQ when we wrote it. Another legal counsel at the UG did. So the RFQ will pre-qualify multiple primes and multiple subcontractors who will then pursue each individual site at an RFP and be awarded that site. So first round is just a pre-qualification. My thought would be somewhere between RFQ and when we start RFPs, we should report back to this committee with who was pre-qualified. We could definitely bring that information because it'll be public at that moment, at that time, but more as a conversation point to talk about how do we do exactly what I think we're talking about.
Generate upper mobility.
And let's get input on how we should then, what did we learn from the RFQ process? Who won the RFQ process? What are the next steps? And how do we better inform those next steps to get the end result that the outcomes that we're looking for? Like, what are the inputs that require the outcomes?
And I would like to add that the term upper mobility might be too general, or, it's easy to understand by planners and financing or community developers. But bottom line is, this has to generate growth for our people, the opportunity of growth to our people.
I'm hearing, Mr. Hand, is that we should perhaps have them respond back to this committee, to those developers, before they're actually selected for a specific site, one of those 3 sites. Am I understanding that correctly?
Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. Generally, yes. And I think that the RFQ closes on April 27th at 2 p.m. We'll probably need a couple of weeks. So my recommendation would be I probably could report verbally in the May meeting, but it'll probably be the June meeting when we'll actually have something we'll want. I mean, I'll shoot for May, but I think, and I, again, Commissioner, I've committed that planning will be here for all your meetings, but so I can be here at accordingly. But my gut tells me June would be the right time to be on the agenda to report back and then facilitate a conversation about upward mobility, community benefits for the 3 projects. And then that intel, if you will, we can bake into the writing of the RFPs. I just want to make sure we touch base before we go to that stage, because the RFPs is where the rubber meets the road on those 3 sites.
So is the RFP, does it have the intention of including some form of community benefit agreement?
I mean, we can write the RFP any way we want, but because we don't have a community benefit ordinance, I don't think we can go out on a limb and require it. Like, because our DBE ordinance has sunset, we wrote in the RFQs a preference, but we can't score on that preference, and we can't actually ask them to be a DBE or have a DBE component because we don't have the ordinance.
Because we're
But we
still
can
not
write
ready.
it, you can write it, and a lot of respondents, having sat on the other side of the table, will read in between the lines and volunteer a DBE goal or volunteer X, Y, and Z. And so that's what we're hoping for. But again, I think it'll be a little tough to even call it a community benefit agreement without an ordinance. But I think the things that are involved in a community benefit agreement, and because it's UG owned land, yeah, I think we can write the RFPs however we want.
And ultimately, any development agreement can contain that. The commission can put that in. And I think that's something that's on the commission's radar now. So even if we don't have a specific ordinance, anytime incentives are involved, you have wide discretion to require whatever you want.
Mhm.
Do we know any commissioner that would be willing to help us?
I think, not to go totally off track here, but I think the conversation that I would hope we have selfishly for the comprehensive plan process would be not the nuts and bolts of what a benefit agreement should look like, but like comprehensively, what do we want to get out of development agreements, period. Right now, there are some policies, protocols, and procedures based on what that incentive is. But generally speaking, we negotiate a deal, a project at a time. Other communities do it differently. We should have the conversation of, should we be doing it differently? And then let the cards fall where they may.
I honestly think that the community benefit agreement should contain some sort of upper mobility insurance generating by de facto.
Right, jobs are great, but jobs for who, right? Development's great, but development for who? Housing's great, but housing for who? And so again, I think these are the conversations that we haven't had, that we only, in my experience in my last 3 years here, we've only had when we're in the meeting talking about the entitlements.
Right.
We got to take a step back
Catch it before.
and have these conversations before, which is rough because I am constantly telling people that planning doesn't move at the speed of the market because it's not supposed to. There will be development agreements that run through the traps before we get to the point where we have the policies in place. So I think how we balance that is.
Right. No, I totally understand, but we
We-
still are trapped by our own
Sure.
ineffectiveness in the past.
Well, my hope is that we can get a true ordinance in place for this commission by the end of the year. In the meantime, we kind of have to start crafting it and cobbling it together and I think this conversation is going to help us sharpen the pencil as we move forward. My hope is that we can get through this through the commission by the end of the year. I do think that's a realistic expectation. That will also have tentacles to the citywide, countywide master plan as things that you've been talking about, but that will give us and also have tentacles into the proposed and I guess ongoing economic development master plan that our prior administrator had started the process, and I'm hoping that our current new administrator will continue on, but that will have tentacles to that as well, so that we're not tripping over ourselves going forward, but that we have something that helps both from a planning perspective, both also from an eco-devo perspective, and from all different perspectives that will be successful by the end of the year. What is your timeline by chance, Mr. Hand, on the countywide master plan?
We hope to be done by the end of this calendar year.
Okay, well, we're on the same page then.
Yes, we are.
We're on the same page. I see a hand. Yes, Mr. Barber.
All right, am I clear in understanding that in order to have the kind of comprehensive plan we've just been talking about, we need to have ordinance in place that would support that particular vision? And if so, is it possible for us to see or have pointed out what ordinances, if any, are in place that kind of support community development and address the kinds of things we've just been talking about?
I don't know that we have anything specific to what you just said. I think we have certain things, policies that are in place that kind of have that same tenor, but I don't know that we have anything in terms of legislation thus far. The Gunner can probably help me better on that.
Gunnar Hand, Director of Planning and Design. We do not need an ordinance passed to do long-range planning. We actually just finally onboarded our last consultant on the group of consultants working on all these different deliverables that I mentioned earlier, which are all going to move forward with the same, as the same conversation, right? We will develop an economic development strategy and a housing strategy, but both those things will be incorporated into the comprehensive plan as chapters with their own deliverable / document as an appendix, right? So you can pick out the whole Eco-Devo plan if you want to read just the Eco-Devo plan, but that Eco-Devo plan will have an executive summary that will basically become the chapter of the comprehensive plan, right? So that's kind of how we're piecing it all together. To your point though, or to your question though, Mr. Barber, I think what we're talking about is sort of walking and chewing gum at the same time, which is let's do a comprehensive plan where we're having these high level conversations about what our economic development strategy should be. But we have this one conversation about a community benefit ordinance that could maybe help us along with that conversation, but also be implementing that vision while we're developing the vision. And I think that's fine.
Yeah.
In fact, again, I'm a big proponent of implementation starts at day one.
Yeah, I totally agree. Before we close, we're almost on our timeline. Sharon, do you have anything that you wanted to input there? Or no? Okay. And I see Jennifer, you joined us, Jennifer, as well. Did you have any input on the discussion that we're having at this time?
No, I think it's some good conversation going, and again, getting all the parties where we know what everybody else is doing, and conversation is always good. So I appreciate the opportunity to be an observer today.
Okay, great, thank you. I see also Ms. DeWitt is there also. Kim, did you have anything that you wanted to offer?
Hi, thanks for the opportunity. I love the discussion today. I think one thing we didn't really touch on, but I think it really does dovetail what Mr. Galacia was saying earlier about inclusion. I think we also, as we build out these plans, we also need to be thinking about how we can be intentional about including small business in those plans, in terms of using them both as a local resource and being intentional about engaging with them, both as a vendor and then as an end product or an end user as well.
I was hoping that someone would bring that up. Go ahead and finish your thoughts.
I was just going to say, I can certainly speak from my own experience being a small business owner and being in the consulting world. Even though I grew up here, went to Sumner Academy, I know a lot of you commissioners and politicians and local folks, I still don't feel engaged. I still don't feel like I have good inroads to be able to participate in these great plans that are being developed, either as a vendor or as an end user, as just a fellow small business owner. So I think that's definitely something to keep in mind as we start to organize around these bigger plans.
Absolutely. One of the things that Mr. Hand and I did talk about was utilizing these forums as task force forums as a means of community engagement, because we've had as many as 25 or 30 folks on board, and we've had as few as maybe 5 of us on board, but each of the meetings provides the space to even discuss what you were talking about, Mr. Witt. I totally agree with that. And I do know, just at least what was told to me from our interim county administrator rather, that the but the economic development master plan will speak to the challenges that are faced by small businesses. And we'll have that built in as a component of the overall economic development plan. Now, of course, we've got to work and be patient to give our current new permanent county administrator a chance to kind of level himself and get organized. I'll be talking to him tomorrow, but we can even lead into that at our next meeting, which he will be a part of in May. So this conversation is going to continue to go on. I don't know what's going on with all the other task force. I can only speak for this one. We are meeting pretty consistently, and I think we're providing a good space for the community to be engaged. I think that there's some areas that we can do better, but overall, I think we're doing the best we can at this particular time. So thank you all for your comments. Anyone have any summative comments before we dismiss today? All right, great. Well, we appreciate the time that you've given us today for this vital conversation. Continue to meet us on the first Tuesday of every month at 3:00 p.m. And if you want to come down, you can come down to the 5th floor of the Unified Government City Hall. So with that, we're going to adjourn for today. I just ask that you all have a great day when you leave. Thank you.